Well, hello and welcome everyone to yet another one of my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. videos. Now, between speculations and predictions on one hand and actual information we've been given so far in the 5th season of the show on the other hand, there has been one thing missing that I might not have mentioned or discussed down the road. The show did not just get moved to January to make room for Inhumans on the full schedule, but it has also gotten itself a Friday time slot that is kind of good in a way and bad in another. So there's no reason to freak out on our end yet, and definitely none for the show to work its events in its comfort zone. But before I get cracking on the topic though, let me remind you that it is always much appreciated if you drop me a like if you end up liking the content of this video, and if you subscribe if you want to see more of my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. review, theory, and news videos. I would also like to remind you to click the bell-shaped icon underneath this video if you haven't already. That way you would get notified of my new videos as they come online. Now, there's a video on my channel discussing how shows get higher chances of renewal or cancellation. Any given show on any given network has a greater chance of getting renewed when one of a few factors come into effect. A combination of these factors would give the show higher chances. All these factors are fully explained in a video I uploaded a couple of weeks ago, and that you'll find linked on the end screen to this video. But for the purpose of making a long story short, these factors in a nutshell happen to be: number 1, the show's cost is low enough to allow for a decent markup in terms of advertising money and revenue from sale and distribution worldwide. Number 2, the show airs on a weekday and has enough viewership to keep advertiser money flowing in. Number 3, the show is owned by the network, meaning there is no third-party producer eating part of the margin above the cost of production. Number 4, the show is close to its 80-episode mark, meaning syndication is in the cards for the show if it were to be renewed. Now, Friday night is known to a lot of people as the night where shows go to die. In a way, that's kinda true. It's like the show is brain dead and just awaiting the pulling of the plug, considering Fridays tend to have lower viewership and hence low ratings. But on the other hand, shows airing on Fridays still get decent chances at renewal because there are always the DVR ratings to help them through, besides the fact that they are held at lower standards by the networks. Now, that wouldn't necessarily mean that the requirements for their renewal are lower than those required for other shows airing throughout the rest of the week. Now, speaking of Inhumans, it's kinda really simple. Inhumans is going to be a new entry. It's comic book based and will start its run in IMAX, which will give it really higher chances of being watched. That will at least work for the show up until the point where fans could pass actual judgment, which if positive, will give the show greater chances of existing within the network or getting a better time slot. It will also air right after the episodes of the 7th season of the hit ABC show Once Upon a Time, which will give it even better chances at being watched and at being a success. But speaking of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the show has managed to present the audience with a stellar 4th season. Now, while it started off with the expectation of both the critics and the audience, myself included, that it wouldn't get another season, it did earn itself a renewal for a 5th, fair and square. Nonetheless, this renewal came at the cost of its Tuesday time slot along with a budget cut that will possibly tie the hands of the creators and producers of the show. But even with all of that, producers of the show seem optimistic and believe season 5 won't be the end of it. As I mentioned moments ago, if the show managed to do well for its kind of Friday time slot in terms of the first run and DVR viewership, then we shouldn't worry about this being the end of the run for it. And besides that, the show has already built itself a strong viewership base over the years and should be able to fend for itself with its 5th season. More importantly though, unless the show was cancelled, nothing is ever set in stone, nothing is ever final, and nothing is ever said and done. Networks are not in the business of making us happy or sad. They are in the business of making money. They can cut the budget for the 5th season and move it to a Friday time slot, but if the show still does strongly, they can always go back to investing more in it and moving it back to a weekday time slot. Besides, the 5th season could manage, even with its reduced budget, to do the kind of things that could earn it a 6th season, especially if it ties in with the biggest Marvel event so far in the cinematic universe, that being the Avengers Infinity War. This as well is exactly why I keep stating that the first arc of the season needs to be about S.W.O.R.D, and with this whole time slot change, it now needs it badly if it were to find a way to tie in with Infinity War. This of course brings us to the rights to S.W.O.R.D being owned by Fox and whether or not we can see them on the show. Now, it is true the rights to S.W.O.R.D are owned by Fox, just like it is true that the rights to Spiderman are owned by Sony, yet Captain America Civil War managed to have a decent amount of screen presence for Spider-Man. In return as well, Spider-Man Homecoming will end up featuring Tony Stark. Now, Fox has not managed yet to use S.W.O.R.D in live action movies or TV series, and hence they could use a good introduction on TV through Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Let's be honest here, not all viewers of these kind of series are hardcore comic book fans. As a matter of fact, I've repeatedly read that we're kind of a minority among the fan base of all these comic book based shows. There's also the fact that they might get to have a tit-for-tat stat kind of situation going on there. Like for example, you use Sword now for this one arc and we kind of get to use so-and-so Shield characters when we get to create a live action series or movie that involves Sword. There's of course the other way of doing things. Go out of the comfort zone of the comics and get creative while making sure there's not much overlap between Sword and whatever the show decides to do to get cracking at the incoming Thanos threat. They can create a department of alien BS, or call it weird or anything for all I care, and use it to tie in with the movies. And if that presents overlap with Sword, they could end up being in Prison 42, where they are presented with the job of fighting this alien threat or figuring out a way to keep it at bay. The sky's really their limit there, and it would definitely in this case not require the introduction of Sword, even though it would add a pretty similar arc to the mix. Now before I end this video, I'd love to apologize for a mistake I made on a previous video. Based on 3 articles online, 2 of which have been retracted by the time I uploaded my video with the news on all we know of Season 5 so far, I made the statement that Norman Reedus will be portraying the role of the first Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze, on the upcoming season. Apparently, these were nothing but rumors that some entertainment news websites took so far or maybe misunderstood and turned into fact. There are only discussions so far and comments made by Gabriel Luna, who portrays Robbie Reyes on the show. So once more, my apologies for this mistake. But with that being said, let me know in the comments what you thought of this video. Hopefully it did kind of put you at ease when it comes to the possibility that S.H.I.E.L.D. might live beyond its 5th season. Let me know as well your thoughts on the solutions I presented herein on the issue of Sword being owned by Fox. But until I see you next, thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.